Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Dashboard Fridays. I'm Adam from SquaredUp, and today I'm joined by my colleague Casey from SquaredUp. Hey Casey.
Hey Adam, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Casey is a solutions engineer here, formerly in our support team. So for any of you customers watching this, you've probably almost certainly seen Casey's name on an email or on another webinar in an onboarding call. Casey's your best friend when it comes to getting started with SquaredUp and for any sort of problems you have ongoing. Casey's joined us today to talk us through a SolarWinds dashboard. It's a dashboard we built internally for our demo lab, so I'm sure that all you SolarWinds experts out there have probably got some good ideas about how to make it better, but that's fundamentally what the community's for. So Casey, I've got your dashboard on screen. Why don't you walk us through it?
Perfect. Yeah, so the SolarWinds Orion nodes dashboard is basically showing us our nodes that are monitored through SolarWinds, so our devices in SolarWinds. All of the tiles on this dashboard are configured using the Web API tile, so the Web API tile in SquaredUp. And what we've got here is basically our nodes by their status. So we've grouped them out by their health state. We've got our nodes grouped out by type in a bar graph style view, as well as location. And then over on the right here, we have our unhealthy nodes in sort of a grid style table format here, with a bit of information around them. So things like the summary, why they might be unhealthy, the status with an icon there. And then below this, we've got all nodes. So rather than just filtering to unhealthy, we've then got all of our nodes are active, our healthy nodes, with a bit more information. So things like the IP address, response times, and all that type of information we might want to see. What I can do is dive into the edit mode on one of these just to show you how they're configured. So like I said, we're using the Web API tiles in SquaredUp. So for these ones, we've got the grid visualization. These are set up using, firstly, the provider. So it's just a provider we've configured in the back end of SquaredUp. So the system integrations menu, basically just to communicate with the SolarWinds REST API endpoint to populate these dashboards, populate these tiles. Next up, we go into the HTTP mode, and here's where we just choose which table we're querying. So we've put our query table in here. We can look at what data we want to send. Cool thing about this API, it's super simple to use. They're basically just SQL style queries to send out. So you can search for things like SWQL and find loads of examples on different queries you can pull back for all different types of data. But you can easily see what we're doing here. So what we're trying to pull back, anything that's a status other than one, that's the sort of health status, and then how we're just ordering them. Next up, we can look at the response data. So just what we're pulling back, quite easily see what we're showing. We can then choose our key path. So just the results key path here. Once we've then got all that set up, we know we're showing the right things. We can then look at the grid columns, and we made a couple of small changes here. So things like using more of a friendly name here for summary. If I just remove it out, SolarWinds pulls it back as status description, but we've just changed it to summary. It's a free text field box for us to type that in. And also here we've used these icons. If I just dive into here, just some basically mustache syntax that we've used to the way SolarWinds brings these back, being the status of 1 is healthy, status of 14 is a critical node. Rather than just showing sort of 14 and 3 up on this dashboard, we've decided to put these icons here just to give it more of a visual impact for when you're looking at this. If it was up on a wallboard, for example, just to quite easily identify, our 2 critical nodes here and easily run through with those. Oh yeah, and in addition to that, we've also got grid options. So we row link these out. So we've got our SolarWinds URL there. We've got some logic at the end just to determine the node ID we want to put at the end. So each of these will have a different node ID, and it just means we can then link off if we want to dive into SolarWinds and take a look at those. The all nodes. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you mentioned SWQL, SolarWinds query language. There are some really great resources online to figure out how that works. And for anyone who is interested, if you get the SolarWinds Orion SDK, there is a tool in that called, I think, SWQL Studio. And it's just like SQL Server Management Studio. You can just do right click, select top 1000 rows from this table, and it will give you a stock query that will pull back all your hosts, all your disks, all your alerts, all your volumes, whatever you want to get. So that's a great place to start if you kind of want to take this further and build it out yourself. It's kind of simpler for building those queries and really adding a bit more to your dashboards.
That's it. Yeah, and they're sort of super easy to then grab and just put into your dashboards here and pull back that different type of data. So yeah, with the all nodes, it's much the same. So I'll kind of skip through the first few parts of this. We're just bringing back a bit more information. So we want things like the IP address, the response time. You can see here it is just a small edit to the query to just decide what we want to bring back. And again, in the response time, we can then just verify those results, choose our key path. And then I think we just made some minor changes in the grid columns here as well. So much the same, we're using that custom template to give us those icons. But there's also parts here, just like the response time, rather than just showing us the raw number. And if we don't know if it's in seconds or minutes, just to put the value there, so milliseconds. And also some changes to the summary, in fact, here too. So the summary here, a lot of the time these nodes are up, the status is up. So that's kind of all the information you get. Whereas if it's warning, you can see on the ones above, we get a bit more information around those. As we have the unhealthy nodes tile, for this sort of all nodes tile, we just decided to split that from the comma. Just using some logic within there, split that from the comma just to make it fit really nice on this dashboard. I'll move over just to show you the donut tile because it's a slightly different configuration. In terms of the provider and the data, that's all the same. All we've asked for the donut tile is the node ID and the status. And because this is just a summary view, the donut tile is just giving us a summary of the count of how many unhealthy nodes we have, how many critical warning and healthy nodes we have. So we've just had to put just some if statements in here effectively, just to basically determine if a 0 comes from SolarWinds. SquaredUp will mark that as unknown. If we've got a 1, SquaredUp needs to identify that as healthy, and sort of so on here, 14 being critical. And that way we can then select our data aggregation to count. And we can then just see, our 23 healthy nodes are 8 warning and down to our 2 critical. So it just makes it really easy to have that, high impact donut tile style view of just, all of our nodes filtered out by the different healths.
So in that case, you're doing exactly the same thing as that grid tile, but except instead of putting in a nice visual icon, you're just replacing the numbers with a word so that we get the right legend in the donut, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're doing the same thing there, but just replacing with a word, just so they group together nicely, and they look correct for each segment of this donut tile.
I guess any SolarWinds experts out there will probably be chomping at the bit right now to point out that SolarWinds actually has about 45 different health states, not just the few that we happen to have picked, but because in our environment we only monitor Windows servers, 0, 1, 3, 14 are kind of the only important ones. If you're doing lots of UPS monitoring, there are dozens of other statuses like running on battery. There's a ton of things. So again, using this as a template, right, you can just expand it out. Maybe if it's 1 or 2 or 3, you want it to show as healthy. If it's 4 or 5 or 6, you want it to be a warning. But yeah, you can take these custom labels and just work on them as much as you like.
Yeah, these can be a great place to start. I mean, even as far as the nodes by type and nodes by location, if we look at the response data here, we're just asking for 2 sets of data, the ID and the description. And the same way, we're just grouping these, grouping them by the descriptions and making a count. But you could do this for anything within SolarWinds. If you're querying that and bringing it back in your response data, you can then, here we've actually used the mustache picker to just pick, description. There's nothing really fancy going on here, but it's just an overall count then of how many of that particular description we have, and then just show it in a nice visualization like a bar graph or a donut tile.
On the headers and data panel for those, is it the query that's getting SolarWinds to return that sort of ready grouped data? Is it just asking for a count of something, or is it just returning everything basically, and then we're using the tile to group them together?
That's right. Yeah. So we're just using the query to bring back, the node ID and the description from Orion nodes, and then we're actually mapping that data ourselves by choosing the aggregation as count and then grouping it by the description. Cool. So it will look for anything that's, say, VMware vCenter and count those, or Broadcom Corporation and count those up.
Yeah. I get, because it is kind of SQL syntax. If you did have a massive SolarWinds environment, you could actually just get the, you could do, select count of descriptions from the nodes table instead of doing it in the dashboard. You could probably make your dashboard a bit quicker by getting SolarWinds to do the heavy lifting. But yeah, it's so flexible because it is just a query based API.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, with sort of our size environment, we've been able to get away with just querying for everything. But yeah, you may wish to put sort of a count at the end or a limit to how many results you display.
Cool. So I guess the key then is it's a pretty good sort of starter dashboard if you've got a small environment. Everything's row linked, so if you see something that's a problem, you can click it and it'll jump you straight out to SolarWinds. The counting and grouping all works kind of nicely. Nice image replacements, and it's just a simple web API provider looking for a username and password to get into SolarWinds. So I mean, I guess the only important thing here is that the SquaredUp server can access the SolarWinds server, right? They're just talking over a URL. So in our case, they're on the same network, which is nice and easy. Anything else that's worth mentioning, or should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess last thing just to say, open access is also available from our points of view. So we've even enabled this for open access to put up on the wallboard, but that option is available. So me as the admin, I can obviously dive in and make these changes to the dashboard and configure it. But then you may wish to put this on, say, a wall monitor. Without that ability for anyone to make changes to the dashboard, you've configured it how you want it. You can put it up on the wall monitor without authentication required, and have that sort of visibility, that live view of your SolarWinds data showing up.
I guess in that context as well, you're probably maybe instead of that grid from healthy nodes, you might want to use the status blocks tile and just get all your servers up sort of full screen, big chunky blocks in green, orange, or red. You can make it quite punchy if the use case is a wall screen, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where this dashboard sort of ties in, because it's that starting point. You've then got that ability to use these queries or adapt the query slightly to use the different visualizations in the web API tile, and create something that sort of works for your environment. It's a really good starting point and dashboard for your SolarWinds data.
Nice. Okay. Thank you very much, Casey. I'll go ahead and just wrap us up quickly. So yeah, thanks to everyone. Thanks to everyone for watching. That sample is available from our dashboard gallery. So just head over to squareup.com/dashboard gallery. And as always, Community Answers is there. Big community of experts in SquaredUp, in monitoring, SCORM, Azure, whatever you like. So if you do have questions about that dashboard or about SolarWinds in general, SWQL questions, jump in there. There's plenty of people who I'm sure would help you out. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Casey.
Thanks. See you.
See ya. Bye bye.